How's it going? Welcome back, my wonderful wise ones, to a fantastic video today. I'm pretty excited today to talk about this wonderful game that harkens back to a simpler time. Yes, that's right, a simpler time back before the days of the internet, back before our brains were polluted by ChatGPT and constant bullshit. We had simpler times.
The robot heaven lies here in the good book 3.0.
Hey, do I preach to you when you're lying stoned in the gutter? No.
I remember playing some PS2 games, PS1 games, and if I was stuck on a game, well, that was it. I couldn't do anything about it. I just had to, try and get help with some of my friends or my brother, try and figure out this like puzzle or what to do next or how to figure out a combat situation, what attacks to use, what I should level up, all of that good stuff. Now gaming, kind of follows like standard pattern, doesn't it? Like most games, they all have the same progression system. There's always abilities to level up, there's always the skill trees and constant hand holding, mini maps, lots of HUD elements. Well, this game is trying to go back to the old style of gaming, old school gaming, but still keeping it modern aesthetically and graphically, and that's something that you don't usually see, and that's why I just wanted to draw attention to it today. So welcome back, my wise ones, and I do hope you're having a fantastic day. Check out my demo review of the Lost Soul Aside that I made recently if you're interested, and I'm also talking about another great game that I love, Metal Eden. But today, we've got so much content to cover. There's a lot to cover, okay? And if there's a particular game that you would like me to talk about, because at the end of September, I am going to the press event at Tokyo in Tokyo Game Show, as I live close by, and I will be playing a bunch of games there, hands-on, before the public days. So I will, be able to chat with developers and all that good stuff, which is quite scary for me as it's only my second time. But please let me know if there's a particular game you want me to cover, and just leave it down below in the comments. Thank you very much.
Let's go already!
So today we are discussing Hell is Us, okay? And I agree with that statement, because humanity is doing a great job. That's why today I'm going to be giving you the Hell is Us review. Now, this is based on the early access stuff and the preview stuff that I'm allowed to talk about. I can't talk about anything else beyond that. And sadly, I think you could have played some of it yourself, but they have now, I think they've pulled the demo build, which is kind of weird. I do hope you enjoy this video, and I kindly ask you, my wonderful wise ones, to simply like the video, hype it up. That's a new feature on YouTube. If you're on mobile, it doesn't cost anything, and I would appreciate it. It helps get the video out there, as I am trying to make this channel full-time, or just support me as a member, or just a donation, because that's how I can keep doing this, honestly. Your support does mean a lot, and you get access to a bunch of extra free content. And subscribe if you're new, become a wise one if you love gaming analysis. Now, when you look at Hell is Us, you might be thinking that this is, a proper big AAA game, okay? And like I said, this month in particular is the rise of the AA, I think, because there's so many great AA games coming out. This is made by a small developer group of around 50 people, I believe, so it is very firmly AA. So basically there's limited HUD, no minimap or, hand-holding elements that you see in most games, and I really find that refreshing, okay? Because basically with new games today, especially adventure puzzle games, and this is kind of what this game is. It's a little bit of a Souls-like, and I know a lot of people don't like me comparing games to Souls, and I, always make fun of it, just to put that out there. I think it's ridiculous as well, calling everything a Souls-like, but when something is clearly borrowing elements from a Souls-like, there's nothing else to compare it to. I mean, it's a genre for a reason now. But it isn't just that, okay? This is doing something very different, like I said. So it's more of a kind of old-fashioned adventure mystery kind of game as well, with a lot of puzzles in them. So, it kind of breaks up the flow of combat. You have to go and explore different hub areas, figure out, like clues and piece them together, talk to NPCs, gather information to unlock a puzzle, to progress, to do some combat, to fight a boss, rinse and repeat. With different settings and everything, of course, but it is very refreshing with how it's done, like how you gather information from NPCs. It's super well done. Just like visually, this game is breathtaking. Like the water physics and just the lighting in this is very nice. I will say that by the looks of it on consoles, it does look a little bit stiff, a little bit low FPS, but hopefully that gets patched out. And like I said, with this Hell Is Us review, I'm only talking about the early access stuff, okay? So, things might change, of course. So now let's get into the positives and negatives of this Hell Is Us review. And like I said, if you are, hankering for that old style of game where you will be scratching your head on how to solve things, then this game is going to be for you. If you find that frustrating because you've got conditioned and brainwashed slowly by modern day media to feel like a little baby boy that needs to be, spoon-fed. I don't want to eat apples, I want them crunched up and shoved up my ass.
What? What?
But if you're not like that and you actually like to think about puzzles in video games like they used to be, then this game is for you. And it does remind me in some of the best ways of, simple Resident Evil puzzles. They're not going to be, like making you frustrated for the most part. Most of the times you should be able to figure this out if you have a decent IQ and you're not literally brain dead. Or you don't get ChatGPT to read you bedtime stories or something like that, then you should be able to solve most of the puzzles, to be honest. But at the same time, I think a lot of this mystery will be ruined because so many people can just access the internet now, so you can look up puzzles, all that stuff. But I think that's fine, as a last resort. But I do love the nature that they're trying to capture. I do love what they're trying to capture, and I hope more games follow in this footsteps. I always, no matter what, I'm a freak, okay? I'm a freak in the bedroom and I'm a freak when it comes to the games, okay? I turn off all HUD. Any game I play, I turn that shit off. And yes, most of the time it means I'm wandering around like a retard and I don't know what I'm doing. In fact, my friends get very frustrated because when I'm playing a multiplayer shooter like Battlefield, I'm going in there no HUD. So I don't know what the hell's going on. It makes it all just come alive and a much more fun and immersive gameplay wise as well, just turning off the HUD. And I do like that, if this becomes more popular, more games will start doing that, and that's a big win for me. The story in this does seem to be quite interesting. It's a very mystery-based game. It takes inspiration from, the Outer Wilds as well, where you have to piece information together, find an object, and when you think, oh, okay, maybe I can piece this together, you find notes lying around, read the information, it will go all into your data pad, and that's very much similar to the Outer Wilds system of, having this branching information kind of detective, board where you can piece together information. But Hell Is Us is not a massive game. It's not exactly open world. It has side exploration paths that you can go down and they all kind of, loop back into the main hub area. At least this is from what I've seen so far. So those are some of the main positives. Now let me just touch on some negatives. Okay, so the combat system itself, I would say it's a bit of a mixed bag, okay? It's going for this modern fantasy style, and that's pretty cool. It's something I haven't really seen much of, where yes, you could technically use a gun, but as far as I've seen in the early access stuff, it's all melee based, okay? And earlier and later on, I think I am allowed, and later on, you do get much more complicated enemies, okay? If you've only seen the demo build, then you might not know what I'm talking about, but basically, there are enemies that are greater later on that aren't just these generic kind of, one-off, like shape-shifting, morphing little doodad zombie things. And basically, what's interesting about this and the combat system is the enemies are tethered to something, and you need to destroy that kind of projection, that manifestation, to actually then destroy the other enemy. And later on it gets even more crazy. It even gets more to like a bullet hell type enemy that you have to, dodge and, outmaneuver and stuff like that, because they will be firing off different projectiles. They are more erratic with their attacks, more big and more bulky, and they shoot off these crazy manifestations, not just a linkage to each other, because that's the main thing. You know, enemies are kind of linked together, but it gets more evolved as you progress. Also, there's this weird health system where you can get some of your health back depending on, you know, if you land certain attacks and your timing is good. At times, I feel like some of the RPG stuff is unnecessary for this type of game. Like, it has such a unique style to it, and it's much more of a narrative exploration puzzle game, but then also it tries to be a little bit of a Souls-like with its combat, and then all of these RPG things and some, you know, equipment that actually have bonuses and stuff like that. To me, that all feels kind of tacked on, and I think it would be a more refined experience if they didn't have that exact combat style. I do think that the story is interesting, and talking to NPCs, that's, you know, a nice touch. Sound design is really good as well, and it has this kind of haunting atmosphere. I wouldn't exactly describe it as scary, but it is certainly like uneasy, and you know something unnatural is going on. And I just love how you kind of piece together like information, but at times it does feel a little bit disconnected. Like, you know, you might lose motivation as to why you're doing something if you're kind of in the dark. And there are moments of that, but I'm sure as you know, progress and unlock more about the story and find more notes, then, you know, things will piece together quite nicely. I do like to see this exploration, no hand-holding, puzzle solving, as, you know, a way to break up the gameplay, because usually it's just something like platforming or some basic puzzles. This is a lot more interesting to me. I just think that the combat system that they went for doesn't necessarily fit the themes and the kind of, you know, like the pacing sometimes of the rest of the gameplay. And aesthetically maybe it would be better if it didn't try and emulate some Souls-like elements with the stamina management, RPG mechanics and stuff like that. Maybe more of a hybrid, you know, something more like a Remnant or something similar. So I do think it's a good game. I think the combat is not the most interesting, but as you gather more abilities, upgrades, it does get better, more enemy types as well, so it does become a lot harder. Because the weird thing about this game is it feels like two games in one at times, and it kind of lulls you into that belief of, this game is something completely different, more kind of Resident Evil puzzle solving, without the horror elements, and, you know, then it jumps into more Souls-like. So it's quite confusing at times, but most of the time it works. And there are clear distinctions between, you know, when is combat and when it's time for exploration, but some of these hub areas do overlap as well. So now you will be going into dungeons and stuff like that in this game, and, you know, there are different things to find, different weapons to find. And you have this little drone companion, and later on you can, you know, use your drone to distract enemies. You can use him to pull off some crazy moves like jumping up in the air and doing like slam dunks. Just at times it feels like it doesn't quite match, like, you know, the dual wielding axe, you know, fits in something like the first Berserker, but does it really fit here? I'm not so sure, to be honest, especially when it doesn't feel as good as something like the first Berserker combat wise. That's why I think, you know, they should have mixed up the combat gameplay a little bit more. But there are, you know, unique weapons and different playstyles, you know, depending on what you want, like a great sword or, you know, a standard one-handed sword and stuff like that. But it's the mystery to me and the world that is compelling, and, you know, the art style, the ambience, all of that stuff is so well done, and that's what really is interesting about Hell Is Us. I hope you enjoyed this Hell Is Us review, and do bear in mind that this is an early access review of Hell Is Us, not the full experience as of yet. When I find a game I truly love, I do a deep video essay kind of yearly review on it, break it down, make it into a video essay. The early reviews are obviously much more light coverage because there's only so much information I can go off, and, you know, based on the hands-on stuff, how much actual time with hands-on I get and all that good stuff. So if you're looking for more deeper reviews, check out my yearly review series. You can find it all on the homepage, or my philosophical videos where I break down different topics or even tie them together with gaming, like I just did with The Shadow in video games. So check that one out because it kind of failed, even though it's a very interesting topic. And thank you so much for watching, my wise ones, and any new viewers, please do consider joining this community, as that is what this is all about. I do this because it's fun and interacting with you guys. Please keep an open mind, and yeah, just have a great day, and stay awesome. Peace out.